The first day of human-Xeran culture exchange was tense. Every movement watched and measured by alien eyes that had never known patience or curiosity in equal measure. Humans move with purpose but also with warmth, their gestures inviting rather than commanding. Musicians tuned their instruments, their melodies soft and intricate, filling the neutral chamber with harmonies that shifted subtly with emotion. Xeran observers, armor and rigid, tilted their heads, their sensors flickering as they attempted to decode patterns that defied their calculations. Narration stood near the center, watching, listening, feeling every note and rhythm as if it were a heartbeat stretching across species. Gradually, the first responses came. A young Xeran, its exoskeleton glinting under the lights, mimicked a rhythm played on a human drum. It was imperfect, awkward, but the effort itself carried meaning. Humans smiled, encouraged, and adapted, creating counter rhythms that invited participation rather than correction. Music became a dialogue, a language that bypassed spoken words and reached the core of perception. In that room, for the first time, hostility seemed to soften, replaced by curiosity and a spark of wonder. Then came the stories. Holographic projections painted scenes of Earth's landscapes, of mountains and oceans, forests and cities, all teeming with life and color. Human myths were told. Heroes overcoming impossible odds, societies built through cooperation, moments of tragedy met with resilience. The Xeran watched in silence, scanning, calculating. Yet some among them lingered longer, drawn to the complexity of human emotion and the beauty of creative expression. Leora sensed it immediately. The room had shifted. The rigid walls of suspicion were cracking, and the first threads of understanding began to weave between species. Humans demonstrated art next. Sculptures that twisted in impossible geometries, paintings that changed subtly under light, and interactive installations that responded to touch. Xeran participants hesitated at first, claws hovering over surfaces, unsure of intent. Slowly, they reached out, tentatively touching, bending, and interacting with the works. A small Xeran child, uncharacteristic for its species, attempted to replicate a human brushstroke, producing jagged yet intentional marks. Leora's team applauded softly, knowing that these moments, though small, represented monumental progress. Food, surprisingly, became one of the most transformative elements of the exchange. Humans offered flavors and textures that were entirely alien, sweet, bitter, sour, and savory combinations that engaged senses of Xeran had seldom explored. Initial reactions were cautious, some recoiling, some scanning ingredients suspiciously. Yet, as taste and aroma intertwined with storytelling and music, even the most skeptical Xeran began to participate. Meals became communal experiences, and for the first time, a hostile species experienced the human capacity to create joy and connection from something as simple as shared sustenance. Games and problem-solving exercises followed, designed not to compete, but to collaborate. Humans and Xeran worked together to construct towering structures from modular components, solve puzzles that required both logic and intuition, and navigate simulations that demanded creativity and empathy. Each success, each small shared achievement, broke down barriers, proving that humans were capable not just of survival, but of inspiring and facilitating growth in others. Alien expressions, once rigid and unreadable, shifted subtly, revealing curiosity, hesitation, and even enjoyment. By the end of the first cycle of exchanges, the most notable change was subtle yet profound. Xeran, who had arrived tense, defensive, and suspicious, now lingered, observing, imitating, and sometimes initiating interactions. The hostility that had defined their society softened, replaced by a fragile but unmistakable curiosity. Leorishan realized that this was the true power of human culture. Not to dominate, not to coerce, but to bridge the unthinkable, to reach across difference, and to plant seeds of understanding where none seemed possible. At night, as the twin suns set over the asteroid station, humans and Xeran alike gazed at the stars, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. One species, capable of destruction, had glimpsed the beauty and complexity of another, and in that moment, for the first time, hostility wavered before the quiet, persistent power of shared culture, creativity, and human ingenuity. Weeks passed, and the fragile threads of understanding between humans and Xeran began to strengthen in ways no one had fully anticipated. The initial curiosity of the aliens blossomed into engagement. Their rigid postures softened slightly. Their gestures became more fluid, and the guttural sound that punctuated their language began to carry nuances that humans could interpret. Leora and her team observed with cautious optimism. Every subtle shift was a victory, though measured in patience rather than spectacle. Humans introduced storytelling workshops, where both species share experiences and histories. Xeran participants recounted legends of conquest, survival, and honor, while humans wove tales of exploration, collaboration, and resilience. At first, these exchanges were awkward, the Xeran struggling to understand metaphor, allegory, or symbolism. But gradually, through guided exercises and interactive holographic representations, they began to grasp the essence. Stories were not merely for entertainment, but for connection, for understanding perspectives and emotions of another. Music became the next frontier. Humans performed complex symphonies, while Xeran attempted to replicate rhythm and harmony, initially producing jagged, discordant patterns. Yet, when humans adapted their instrument and tones to respond to the Xeran attempts, the aliens began experimenting with improvisation. The sessions transformed into collaborative performances, blending alien tonalities with human melodies, creating a fusion that neither species had known was possible. Observers from both sides were enthralled. What had begun as an educational exercise became an artistic revelation. Food, too, continued to serve as a bridge. Humans demonstrated the concept of flavors as emotional expression: sweetness for joy, bitterness for contemplation, spiciness for excitement. Xeran participants, initially skeptical, began to craft their own dishes, combining indigenous ingredients with human techniques. The meals became celebratory events, with both species sampling, critiquing, and sharing creations. Leora noticed that during these moments, barriers dissolved entirely. Conversation flowed, laughter resonated, even among the most previously hostile Xeran elders. Collaborative problem-solving exercises escalated in complexity. Humans designed simulations requiring creativity, intuition, and empathy alongside logical reasoning. Xeran teams, previously relying on strict hierarchy and algorithmic precision, had to adapt to improvisation, negotiation, and compromise. At first, failure was frequent, frustration evident. But over time, the aliens began to display flexibility, ingenuity, and even subtle humor. One particularly challenging simulation involved constructing a sprawling city on a shifting asteroid. Humans and Xeran had coordinated in real time, adjusting structures as the terrain changed. By the end, both species celebrated success together, a tangible proof that collaboration could surpass competition. Yet the journey was not without tension. Conservative Xeran factions viewed the exchanges with suspicion, fearing contamination of their society, loss of authority, or weakness. Some attempted to sabotage interactions, spreading misinformation or withdrawing key participants. Leora handled these challenges delicately, emphasizing respect, patience, and gradual trust building. She often reminded her team, real change was not immediate. It was earned through consistency, transparency, and the demonstration of shared values. The tipping point arrived when Krelix, the young Xeran who had first shown curiosity, led a delegation of peers to initiate their own cultural demonstration. They presented visual art, music, and rituals of their own creation, seeking human participation. For the first time, the exchange became two-way. Humans responded with enthusiasm, learning alien practices, interpreting their symbolism, and celebrating the creativity behind it. Mutual respect flourished, establishing a foundation for lasting understanding. By the end of the year, the asteroid station had transformed. The once hostile Xeran had begun to recognize humans not as threats, but as partners capable of inspiration, innovation, and emotional depth. Leora reflected on the magnitude of their progress. A species that had relied solely on dominance and hierarchy had begun to explore empathy, creativity, and collaboration, all through the persistent, patient influence of human culture. The galaxy watched quietly. Other civilizations noted the unprecedented success of human diplomacy, ingenuity, and cultural engagement. It became increasingly clear that humanity wielded a power beyond weapons, the ability to connect, to inspire, and to transform the hearts and minds of others, even those once deemed irredeemably hostile. Months turned into a year, and the tentative exchanges between humans and Xeran had matured into something remarkable. Where once suspicion and hostility had dominated every interaction, curiosity and cautious respect now guided dialogue. The asteroid station thrummed with activity, humans and Xeran collaborating in ways that neither species had imagined possible. Music echoed through the chambers, blending human harmonies with alien tonalities. Holographic murals depicted joint narratives of struggle and triumph. Kitchens filled with exotic aromas, combining ingredients and techniques from both worlds. The real breakthrough came when the humans proposed a joint festival, an event celebrating the creativity, ingenuity, and history of both species. The idea was met with skepticism by many Xeran elders, but Krellix and other younger delegates embraced it enthusiastically. The festival was meticulously planned, a blend of performances, art exhibitions, storytelling sessions, and collaborative problem-solving demonstrations. Every activity was designed to highlight the uniqueness of each species, while fostering shared experience. On the opening day, the festival hall shimmered under lights and holograms, alive with movement, sound, and color. Humans performed a symphony that shifted dynamically as Xeran participants added their own harmonics, creating a soundscape that transcended either culture alone. Artists displayed creations side by side, and children from both species played games designed to teach cooperation and creative thinking. Even skeptical Xeran began to participate, cautiously at first, then with growing enthusiasm, as laughter, applause, and shared excitement filled the room. The symbolic moment came when Krellix, with his clawed appendages, added the final stroke to a massive collaborative mural, depicting a cosmic scene. Humans and Xeran reaching across a void toward one another, their hands intertwined, stars and planets bridging the space between. The audience, humans and Xeran alike, fell silent, absorbing the weight of the gesture. For the first time, it was undeniable. Culture had become a bridge, not a weapon. Understanding had replaced fear, and connection had begun to reshape a previously hostile race. But change was not universal. Back on the Xeran homeworld, conservative leaders monitored the festival closely. Some viewed it as a threat to authority, fearing that human influence would weaken traditional hierarchies and martial discipline. Yet, even among skeptics, reports of engagement and curiosity could not be ignored. Soldiers, scholars, and young citizens alike had witnessed human creativity and emotional expression, and some could not dismiss the subtle power that flowed from it. Meanwhile, humans continued to push the boundaries of exchange. They shared technological insights not as dominance, but as inspiration, encouraging Xeran innovation and adaptation. Education sessions focused on empathy, problem-solving, and art, creating a generation of Xeran who could approach life with flexibility and imagination, skills that had previously been secondary to militaristic precision. Leora and her team realized that this was a true victory, not converting an enemy, but planting the seeds of society that could evolve beyond hostility, learning from the strengths of humanity without losing its identity. As months passed, small Xeran communities began adopting human practices alongside their own. Music, art, and storytelling became common across sectors. Collaborative engineering projects flourished, and festivals modeled on the asteroid station event spread to other neutral zones. Humans observed with pride and humility, knowing that culture, creativity, and empathy, traits so inherent to their species, had proven more powerful than fleets of ships or displays of force. The galaxy began to take notice. Other alien civilizations, who had once observed humans with mild curiosity or condescension, saw evidence that humans could influence even the most hostile societies without coercion. Diplomats spoke of the human method, the ability to transform potential enemies through shared culture, understanding, and creative expression. Humanity's reputation shifted once more. No longer merely survivors, explorers, or warriors, they had become teachers, connectors, and innovators capable of shaping outcomes in ways few others could. And through it all, Leora Shin reflected on the journey. What had started as an experiment, a delicate attempt to bridge an unyielding divide, had blossomed into something far greater. Humans had not simply survived hostility. They had reshaped it, demonstrating that the essence of their species lay not in weaponry or dominance, but in their capacity to inspire, to connect, and to create. The Xeran, once feared and loathed, had begun to understand that humanity's strength was the human spirit itself. In that understanding, a galaxy-wide lesson had been learned. Creativity, empathy, and culture could achieve what force never could. Tensions flared unexpectedly when a distant Xeran fleet, still loyal to traditionalist leaders, approached the asteroid station with intentions unclear. Their ships loomed dark and angular, sensors scanning aggressively and weapon systems partially armed. For a moment, old fears resurfaced among the human team. Years of progress and delicate trust seemed vulnerable to a single misstep, a single misunderstanding. But the humans were ready. Leora Shun, with calm authority, reached out through the established communication channels, not with threats or demands, but with invitations. She projected a live feed of the festival hall, filled with both humans and Xeran participating in music, art, and collaborative exercises. Every note, every movement, every gesture was a message. This was not weakness. This was connection, creativity, and shared purpose. The conservative fleet hesitated. Sensors recorded the vibrant activity, noting cooperation and emotion in a way that no algorithm or military manual could explain. For the first time, some of the fleet's younger officers questioned orders, wondering if dominance was truly necessary when understanding could achieve the same, and perhaps greater, results. Krellix and other Xeran delegates approached the fleet leaders through secure channels. Using a combination of symbols, music, and carefully calibrated communication algorithms, they conveyed the meaning of the festival. Humans were not invaders, but partners, and their culture offered tools for enrichment and collaboration rather than submission. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, the fleet reduced its weapons posture. Hull lights dimmed, weapons cooled, and sensors that had been fixated on targeting humans now scanned the hull with cautious curiosity. The turning point came when the conservative Xeran leaders were invited to observe a collaborative demonstration. Humans and Xeran constructed an intricate structure in zero gravity, each piece dependent on cooperation, improvisation, and trust. The conservative officers watched, initially stiff, then gradually leaning closer, inspecting the elegant balance of form and function. By the time the structure was complete, they were silent, not in awe, but in recognition. The humans and their allies had shown that cultural ingenuity could achieve coordination, trust, and success in ways brute force could never accomplish. When dialogue was finally opened, the conservative leaders admitted the obvious. Confrontation would only result in unnecessary destruction, while engagement could offer long-term stability and growth. Humans negotiated carefully, ensuring that Xeran traditions and authority were respected even as cooperation deepened. Agreements were signed not on paper, but through shared experience, mutual understanding, and symbolic acts, art, music, and collaborative problem-solving serving as the true contracts. In the aftermath, the asteroid station became a hub of interspecies collaboration. Workshops, festivals, and joint projects spread across sectors previously dominated by fear and hierarchy. Human culture had not simply survived contact with a hostile race. It had transformed hostility into curiosity, suspicion into respect, and potential war into a shared vision for progress. Leora Shun reflected on the journey. Knowing this was only the beginning, the Xeran, once considered irredeemable, had begun a slow but meaningful evolution. Through patience, creativity, and the authentic sharing of human culture, a galaxy that once expected conflict had instead witnessed connection. And humanity, standing resilient and compassionate, had proven that its greatest weapon was not firepower, but the boundless capacity to inspire, connect, and transform the hearts and mind of others. Years passed, and the influence of human culture on the Xeran became undeniable. What had begun as tentative curiosity had grown into integrated practices across Xeran society. Music, art, storytelling, and collaborative problem-solving were no longer novelties. They were threads woven into daily life. Xeran children learned alongside humans, sharing lessons in improvisation, empathy, and creativity, while adults experimented with artistic forms and cooperative designs previously unheard of. The asteroid station evolved into a permanent hub of intercultural exchange. Humans and Xeran worked side by side on engineering projects, terraforming experiments, and joint scientific exploration. Festivals celebrating both species' histories and accomplishments became annual events, attended even by conservative leaders who had once viewed human influence as dangerous. The exchange had created a new cultural norm, mutual respect, collaboration, and curiosity as central tenets of societal growth. Diplomacy across the galaxy took note. Other species, observing from afar, marveled at humanity's ability to convert hostility into partnership without the use of force. The term the human method emerged in interstellar councils, a phrase describing the uniquely human combination of creativity, empathy, and cultural influence as a tool for shaping relations and resolving conflicts. Humanity's reputation shifted once again, this time beyond fear or admiration. They were recognized as a species capable of transforming societies through shared understanding and inspiration. Yet, the most profound impact was on the Zirin themselves. Their once rigid hierarchies softened, allowing for more diverse leadership, innovation, and expression. Alien architecture incorporated flowing designs inspired by human aesthetics. Music incorporated harmonics and improvisation, and storytelling embraced themes of cooperation, heroism, and emotional depth. Even the military, once a strictly authoritarian institution, began experimenting with strategies that valued intuition, improvisation, and trust. Humans had shown them that strength was not only in dominance, but in adaptability, creativity, and empathy. For Leora Shun, the greatest triumph was subtle. Walking through a hall where human children taught Zirin youth to play instruments, she witnessed the alien pupils laughing, experimenting, and creating something entirely new. A young Zirin child, inspired by a human folktale, added a twist to the story that was uniquely alien yet resonated with universal themes. The cycle of learning, adaptation, and cultural sharing continued organically, evidence that true transformation had taken root. The galaxy itself shifted in response. Where once conflict had seemed inevitable, interstellar diplomacy began to prioritize collaboration and cultural exchange. Human ambassadors were sought as mediators, advisors, and instructors, their approach proving effective even with species far more hostile than the Zirin had once been. Humanity had not only survived contact with a hostile race, they had reshaped the dynamics of interstellar relations, proving that a species could wield influence through culture, creativity, and empathy rather than weapons. And across Zirin space, monuments quietly celebrated the shared journey. Holographic murals depicted humans and Zirin side by side, constructing, creating, and performing together. Music, once alien and discordant, now harmonized across species, telling a story of transformation, trust, and unity. The legacy of those first exchanges endured, a testament to the power of patience, courage, and a uniquely human capacity to inspire. In the end, humanity had achieved something greater than victory or survival. They had shown that the heart, creativity, and culture of a single species could awaken curiosity, compassion, and collaboration in even the most hostile minds, altering the course of civilizations and the destiny of the galaxy itself. The Zirin, once feared and distant, had become partners, learners, and creators, forever changed by the human example. And in that transformation lay the ultimate proof of what it meant to be human, not merely to exist, but to connect, inspire, and elevate the universe around them.